Asshole Studios in Hollywood, California. You're listening to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. We've all been one, so let's talk about it. Now, here's your host, Doug Bass.
He's an asshole, sir.
He's an asshole.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass. My name is Doug Bass. Thanks for joining the podcast today. Oh, we have got a great show for you today. Let me just remind everyone to please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe there, and also Spotify. The YouTube channel is where our full video is at, so wherever you get your podcast fixes, go fix yourself up and subscribe, all right? Do us a favor. We want to get the audience numbers up and whatnot, so it's all good. And also, if you want to visit us on patreon.com/assholeshow, you can donate stuff there too, and maybe we'll get you some extra content if you do that. Okay, well, let's jump into it. Today's guest is former Mrs. Florida 2016, Karyn Turk. Karyn is the former Mrs. Florida back in 2016. She has also been found guilty. She admits to stealing her mom's Social Security checks. She was convicted in court. She pleaded guilty, and she did some time for this incident. So we're going to jump into a really good interview with her to talk about her being an asshole. All right, we are here on I'm an Asshole with Doug Bass, and our guest today is former Miss Florida 2016, Karyn Turk. Karyn, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being on. I appreciate you taking the time to come on to the Asshole podcast. So Miss Florida 2016, how was that? That must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was Mrs. Florida, actually.
Mrs. Florida,
but thank you. Thank you for the miss. You're just making me feel younger, which is great. But no, it was an amazing experience. It really wasn't what I thought I would be doing in 2016, but it worked out. I actually had 3 glasses of wine in me at a charity event, and I met an amazing lady that had been a former Mrs. Florida, and she talked me into doing it. And by the time the event was over, I told everybody at the table that I was going to compete. So I was pretty much roped in at that point. Right.
Now, do you have a past experience? Did you grow up doing beauty pageants, that kind of thing as a teenager or anything?
No. I grew up in Teaneck, New Jersey. There weren't really any pageants. I grew up in like a predominantly Orthodox Jewish community. So yeah, pageants really weren't on the table for me.
Gotcha. Teaneck, New Jersey. That's interesting. I'm from New Jersey as well. I'm from Essex County, which isn't too far from, that's Bergen County, I believe, Teaneck, right?
It is, Bergen County, yeah.
So when did you relocate to Florida?
I've been here this time 21 years. So I came to South Florida about 21 years ago, escaping, my life in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to school in Central Florida for a little while and lived in Central Florida in my early 20s, but ended up moving back to New Jersey because my first husband thought it was the best place on earth and that we needed to move back. And I couldn't wait to have the opportunity to come back down to Florida. So ended up getting a job with a company that had an office here. And at some point I got my life together and never looked back.
So not a true New Jersey fan. You wanted to escape and go down to Florida.
I did. And I think a lot of people want to escape New York and New Jersey now.
Yeah, the whole
and they're all coming to Florida.
Exactly. Yeah. Florida's great. Yeah, definitely. So this is the Asshole podcast. And you've been in the limelight the past year or so, I would say.
Yeah.
Now this is where I'm at. So you were sentenced to a month in federal prison. And then you received 5 months of house arrest for stealing your mother's Social Security checks instead of sending them to her nursing home where your mother was residing and battling dementia. Is that correct?
I mean, some of that's true. A lot of it's fake news, but, you can't believe, what's going on in the headlines these days. It's actually why I started my own podcast and radio show called Behind the Headlines, because I think it's really important to get to the heart of the matter and the truth of the story. But yeah, if you read the headlines about me, I look like a total asshole. So thanks for having me on.
Hey,
and I
this
have
is the
been
place
an
to be
asshole.
if you have been one.
Listen, I've been an asshole at different points in my life. And, I was an asshole in the way that I was standing up for a nursing home that wasn't taking care of my mother. And yeah, I did refuse to pay them, and I didn't give them her Social Security funds. And, if you read the story, it sounds like, I abandoned my mother. But the truth is the nursing home was neglecting my mom, and I have an unlawful death suit against them. And it became very contentious. I'm somebody who speaks up for myself when I feel like I'm being wronged or somebody else is being wronged. And that was what happened in this situation. And I became a target because of it.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about the guardianship system. And there's a lot of problems in this country. We have 1 million people that are being held against their will in guardianships. And, maybe some of them need guardianships, but a lot of them don't. And things like the Free Britney movement have brought this more into the news and into the limelight. And I hope that through my story and what happened to my mom, that I can be a catalyst for change as well. So, yeah, I was sentenced to 30 days in a maximum security prison for a misdemeanor crime, which was withholding $17,000 of Social Security money that did belong legally to my mom. I was her power of attorney. I thought I had my stuff together. I felt like I was doing the right thing. And I think a lot of people in my situation would have withheld the money. But because I am a very outspoken conservative Republican, I got dragged through the mud a lot in this story. But you know what? There's always light at the end of the tunnel, and a lot of good things have come out of it. And my stint in prison was pretty interesting. I'm probably the only person that's ever been charged with a financial misdemeanor crime who's ended up in a maximum security federal detention center.
Gotcha. Now, why? Now, if you were saying, you admitted to the crime in court, you were found guilty, you were sentenced to a month. Why did you admit to the crime?
Well, I think you really need to understand the federal justice system. And it wasn't something that I'd ever been familiar with before, because I want to preface this with the fact that I've never been in any trouble in my life. And I've never, ever been accused of any crimes ever. I've had a speeding ticket. That's about it. And this situation was really eye-opening, because what people don't realize is 96% of federal crimes end up in plea bargains, because in order to fight the federal government, you're talking about something that can financially break even somebody like me who's not doing so bad. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to fight back against the system that if they want to get you, they're going to get you.
Right.
And
but why take the money?
Okay. But you have to understand the context of the situation. So I'll explain it to you.
So did you put your mother in this nursing home?
I did put my mother in this nursing home. Yeah. And I will forever be sorry that I did that. And I will forever be sorry about allowing my mother to end up in a guardianship, which I also allowed, because at the time,
that's someone that is looking after your mother at the nursing home, correct?
You would think so, right? Okay. That's what you would think. And that was my perception, is that when I started to get into this litigation with the nursing home over, spending my mother's money on aides rather than paying the nursing home, because I didn't feel that they were taking care of her appropriately. When this fight started, they hired an attorney, and that attorney recommended that we put my mother in a guardianship. And to me, at that time, naively, I thought, this is going to be somebody who's going to help me fight back against the nursing home. This is going to be somebody that's going to have my mother's best interest at heart. Somebody who's going to care for my mom, who's going to be, a friend to our family. And what I ended up finding out is that that's not how guardianship necessarily works. And these professional guardians aren't necessarily there always with the best of intentions. And this guardian, in my opinion, was a little more than an extension of this law firm. Not even really clear how much she actually visited my mother or what she did. And
so there was no record of exactly what she was doing when she was looking after your mother.
I can't
was she
get
employed
into all
by
of it.
I understand. Was she employed by the nursing home?
She was brought in by the nursing home and the attorneys who worked for the nursing home. And I allowed her to be appointed. I naively allowed this to happen. So, I have to preface it with, some of this is my fault. Would I go back and do things differently? Of course I would. Would I, misappropriate $17,000 and convert it and put it in an account that didn't have my mother's name on it? That's how they got me. Right. No, I probably would go back and do that differently, but I did pay all of the money back prior to being sentenced. It wasn't like the money wasn't available to me. It wasn't a situation where I was looking to withhold something that was rightfully theirs. But once the feds come after you and you're in that situation and you're a target, I had no choice, I felt, but to take the plea deal. And I thought I was doing the right thing, because never being accused of a crime, my lawyer said, all right, take the plea. you'll probably get 6 months of probation. It'll be fine. You'll pay the money back. It'll be all right. And once I was railroaded in the press and, the magistrate made a point of sending a message to America because of who I was. I ended up in a maximum security federal prison.
Right.
But,
now, that being said, who you are, Miss Florida. Now, while you were doing this, in the back of your mind, are you saying like, hey, I'm a public figure, I make my living doing events, interviewing, I'm Miss Florida. Why would you even fathom even risking going down that road?
You want to know it? Because I'm somebody who stands up for what I believe in. And when somebody's being wronged, I'm going to use my public platform in order to send a message. And that was my original mission in all this. This nursing home was neglecting my mom. I wanted to speak up about it. I thought the guardian was going to be appointed and was going to swoop in, like a guardian angel, and help me and my family. And it ended very differently. And my mom, when my mom passed away, in really horrific conditions. And, that lawsuit is still going on. I can't really get into all of it, but I certainly, and my attorneys certainly feel that, we have a very strong case for the nursing home neglect. And the nursing home,
the nursing home, the guardian and the lawyers are now suing you for a total of $320,000. Is that correct?
Actually, the nursing home voluntarily dismissed their lawsuit, but the papers have not reported on that. So that's an interesting fact that your audience probably doesn't know, because again, if it's something that's flattering towards me, guess what? The media didn't cover it. If it's something that's negative, the media is going to take it and spin with it. Right. And because I am an outspoken Trump supporter, I have been targeted. There's no question about that.
Because you're a Trump supporter, you've been targeted, you say. That's how you feel as far as being on his side, and with your past pageant and the legal situation that you found yourself in. Does it all just, you and I are not going to agree politically. That's fine. That we're allowed to do that.
Yeah, no. That's the beauty of America, is we can disagree. And, there was a time where we could have what I like to call like spirited dialogue. I actually like when people disagree with me.
Now,
call me crazy.
Now, since you are a Trump supporter, let me ask you, do you believe in QAnon?
I don't really believe in QAnon at all. I think that was, there's a lot of things that I've been called a right wing extremist, but, I'm a Jewish girl from New Jersey. My parents were Democrats. My parents voted for Jimmy Carter. I liked Ronald Reagan. I was 7. I knew that there were things in this country from a constitutional perspective that needed to be looked at. And my dad was, really involved in politics and loved news, but they considered themselves Democrats. So I don't consider myself right wing at all, but I do believe that we need to do certain things in this country to boost our economy. And I don't think that the Democrats have done a very terribly good job with past administrations. And, I am a Republican, but I'm certainly not a right winger. I wouldn't consider myself that. But, there's plenty of reports about me. You'll see that, I'm a right-wing extremist, but I think I'm very moderate.
What about the election fraud? Do you believe Trump lost the election?
I do believe that there was widespread election fraud. I don't know what all the ins and outs of it are, and I don't think we'll ever know. And I do think that there's been a lot of covering up of things that went on. But, again, that's in the past now. We're under a new administration. It's water under the bridge. We all have to move on as a country. And especially for somebody like me, okay, I cast my vote.
But there was never any evidence, during that. What would you say the evidence was?
There was actually a lot of evidence of voter fraud, and I was covering voter fraud long before the election. And the way that the mail-in ballots, in my opinion, were used, and COVID was used to politically manipulate this country, is wrong in every way, shape, and form. So, if the majority of voters came out, there shouldn't be all of this questioning of whether or not the votes were accurate or counted, but we still have a lot of questions. I have a lot of lingering questions, and I do feel that our system is broken. And I think that we have to look at, our next election coming up in 2024 and maybe do it a better way, because I do think that the mail-in ballots were used to politically manipulate. And you know what? The Democrats won because of it.
Okay, here's another question for you. Since you think the system is corrupt, the court system, I can agree with you on some levels of that. I feel like there are people in prison that should not be there. But since you did admit to the crime here, how is it corrupt? I mean, if you literally are saying, I'm going to take, I don't know if you took a plea bargain or what, but I mean, if you are saying, yeah, I'm guilty, I took this money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're going to get nailed. You're going to get a sentence. Is that not fair in our justice system, would you not say, if you admitted to it?
No, I'm not. Listen, I pled guilty to a misdemeanor crime for misappropriating $17,000, which I paid back
now
to the federal government.
Did you show up at court with a check of like 60 grand or something like that? Is that true?
No, that's not true. It's not an accurate report. I paid back what I was supposed to pay back with the fines, but that number is not accurate. And what's crazy too is that whole 300,000 number that you threw out earlier is also completely not accurate. But the facts didn't matter in my case. I think that's the most important thing that I learned through this process as far as the media is concerned. There was so much misinformation out there about actually what happened, what my crime was, what my sentence was. There were just a widespread, it's like the telephone game. Remember like when you were a kid?
And then it gets misconstrued as it goes down the line.
It gets misconstrued as it goes down the line.
Let me ask you this. So if you were taking this money, why didn't you pull your mother out of the nursing home?
Because my mother at that point was in a guardian. She was in a guardianship. And when you put somebody in a guardianship, you lose all of your rights. So it wasn't that simple. And that's something that I have to deal with every single day. The fact that I allowed that to happen because I truly believed that the system was going to work in my mother's best interest. And once the guardian was appointed, me, my kids, my family, we had no rights. My mother's rights were completely stripped from her. And there was no way for us to remove her from that situation. And I'll forever be sorry that I did that.
Of course. Now, it's reported that the $17,000 and change that you spent on yourself, going out to dinners, parties, is that true? What did you use the money for as far as, $17,000 at the end of the day, it's not a whole lot of money, but yeah, it's a nice little chunk,
I used it for my mother's benefit. I was hiring aides. I was taking care of my mom. I was doing things with the money that, I felt were appropriate. And, the law said differently because the money legally was not mine, that I wasn't able to take it from the account that I had shared with my mother and put it into an account that didn't have my mother's name on it. And it was that simple. I broke the law in that way. I pled guilty.
Right. Being former Miss Florida, did you feel a pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle as far as being in the public, anything like that? Did that lead to your decision to take this kind of money while you were doing this or anything like that?
No. And that's the most inaccurate thing I've ever read. You'll see that there's these reports that, I was using it to further my dream of being on the Real Housewives or, that my husband and I were spending money at equestrian events. My husband's an attorney. My husband does pretty well.
You're married now, right? Current husband, is that correct?
I'm married,
yeah.
Okay. And I've worked my whole life. I'm not some unemployed schlep. I've worked my whole life. My husband does really well. We didn't need the money. It wasn't about that. It was never about that. But yet, you know what? That was made it for a salacious headline.
You weren't throwing fundraisers for Roger Stone and all that kind of stuff.
I throw fundraisers for Roger Stone.
Not with that money.
Not with my mother's money. No, of course not. It's ridiculous. But that's the whole thing is like, if you read about me, I look like a total asshole, which is why I was really excited to be on your podcast today. But the truth is that, you can't believe what you read anymore. And it's an unfortunate, state of affairs.
I feel like, in my opinion here, you went down a bad path, whatnot. I feel like you are surrounding yourself by other assholes, though, in my opinion. Like President Trump, Roger Stone, I don't know who else. I'm just saying, do the assholeness, do you think that they assholes attract other assholes? Does that happen down there in Florida?
I think we're all assholes.
We are. That's why I have this show.
Potentially be an asshole. So yeah, when you say that, I'm like, well, you know what? I guess some of my best friends are assholes. That's the way that it is. And I think, South Florida gets a bad reputation. It's kind of sometimes a sunny place for shady people. And I've said that a lot because there is a lot of sort of transient stuff and people are coming down here. I told you at the beginning of this podcast, I came down here escaping from New Jersey. I came down here, I left my first husband and ran away to Florida. And I think there's a lot of people that come down here escaping from something. So we do get a little bit of a reputation because of that.
Of course. Look, my parents are Republican. They moved to Naples from northern New Jersey. And, you know, I don't agree with them politically, so I could call them assholes, even though I love them. They're my parents, you know, but we're never going to agree on certain things at the end of the day. That's just the way it is. You know, I mean, yeah, exactly.
And you shouldn't have to.
We shouldn't have to.
I mean, that's like my entire life growing up. And one of the reasons I loved going into politics is because I like a debate. I want to hear what other people have to say. I want to know why you disagree with me. Why is your life experience different than mine? Why do you have the viewpoint that you do? And, you know, if we got into listening to each other a little bit more, instead of just shutting people down and cancel culturing them and saying, well, I don't like your views, so like, I'm done with you.
Do you believe that
we'd be less of assholes?
Do you believe that, because of the situation you're in now, that you have been canceled in a quote unquote sort of way?
They can't cancel me. I won't let them cancel me.
You won't let them.
I'm on your podcast.
That's
I won't
right.
let them.
You're
I won't let them. They tried.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got back up. I mean, that was the thing is if I would have allowed them to break me, if I would have allowed the prison experience to break me, if I would have allowed the papers to shame me to the point where I didn't want to be a public figure anymore, I'd be doing a real disservice to myself, to my mom's legacy. You know, I still want to get back up and I want to fight back and I want to teach people the mistakes that I made and the things that have shaped me to be the person that I am. And, you know, I'm writing a book, which is also going to be called Behind the Headlines. And it's the larger story of what happened to my family and what happened to my mom. And yeah, the mistakes that I made and the things that have shaped me to be who I am today, why I'm a Republican, you know, why I feel the way that I do. And, you know, hopefully, you know, maybe some people that don't like me will read the book and maybe they'll have a new viewpoint and maybe they won't. But, you know, we need to get back to listening to each other. We can't just cancel people and say, oh, I disagree with you. I don't like you. You're canceled. You're done.
We do have to listen to people. What is your thoughts on the Karyn culture? Being a Karyn yourself, but you spell your name with a Y, so maybe you have a pass here. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that actually, I mean, I kind of fit the stereotype in some ways. So,
a little bit.
I do. I mean, I'll own that. I'm usually really nice to service workers, though. I was a waitress. I was a bartender. So I want to say that I'm not the girl who calls the manager. But, you know, do I like to not wear a mask? Yeah, I don't really want to wear a mask. I don't really think that it's effective. But do I do it? Yeah, I do it because I don't want to end up in altercations or arguments.
Do you believe in the mask? So you don't believe wearing a mask saves lives?
You know what? I think that there's some science behind it, but I also think, like, I just bought masks the other day and, you know, you read on the back that they're not for medical use. So why am I putting a mask in my face? It's not for medical use. And, you know, if somebody else has a mask on and, you know, the mask works, then why do I have to have a mask on? Like, there's a lot of things I think about this that you got to throw around, and you got to realize that, you know, we've never shut down our entire country for, you know, the flu before. And we've had some really bad flu seasons. And, you know, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be responsible for getting anybody else sick. I'll probably get the vaccination down the road when it's been tested a little bit more and when it's available to somebody like me. But, you know, I have a pretty healthy immune system and I'm not, you know, going to live in fear.
I understand there's controversy over it. I wear a mask. I mean, I live in LA, so I feel like, you know, while you were going into house arrest, I mean, LA was kind of, we were in our own house arrest kind of in a way, anyway, without the ankle bracelet. How was house arrest? How was prison, first of all? Here's my first question. Okay. Miss Florida goes to prison. So what is that like when you walk in there, former Miss Florida? Are people going nuts? Do they know who you are? Are they like, oh my God, Miss Florida's here? Like, you got to be careful, no?
Yeah, you know, I was kind of terrified. They had talked about putting me in solitary confinement. And, you know, my lawyer and I had talked about it. And he said, you know, you don't really want to do that. You want to be there. You want to hear people's stories. You want to be yourself. You're going to want to socialize. Like, you're not. And he's right. I mean, I did. I was like, you know what, if I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the full experience. And, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I only had 30 days. It wasn't like I was going to be there for years.
Right.
So I kind of treated it like, you know, almost like a social experiment, like doing a documentary. And I wanted to go in. I wanted to learn what it was like. I wanted to learn why these people were there. And I was in a really tough prison. I was in a prison with people. I was in FDC Miami in downtown Miami, which is called O-Town. And there's been a lot of people that have been in that prison that are pretty scary people, like El Chapo. And I went in there and I knew that there were going to be people there for murder and manslaughter and all sorts of really horrible things. And, here I am, basically a misdemeanor white collar criminal going into this really tough prison. And, people were saying to me, you're a Trump supporter. You're going to get your fucking ass beat when you go in there. People are going to be awful to you. They're not going to like you. They're going to rape you. And I didn't experience any of that at all. What I experienced really was compassion and kindness. And I learned a lot about humanity and a lot about people through that experience because you go in and these people are your community. This is your home for the next 30 days. My bunkmate actually was there for manslaughter, and she had been in and out of prison a few times. And there were a lot of people in there that were, socioeconomically disadvantaged, who grew up in really tough circumstances and made bad choices. But at the end of the day, they're kids, they're moms, they're, grandchildren of somebody. And, you put your differences aside and you focus on the things that you have in common. And I learned a lot about people being there, and I was treated really, really well.
Well, that's good. Sorry, I said Miss Florida again, Mrs. Florida.
No, that's okay. I don't mind.
Correct myself. Well, that's good. So you didn't get any prison brawls or shank anyone or anything.
No, I mean, there were fights. There was some really interesting stuff. I mean, there were fights. There were, there was a lot of controversy that went on, but, I just minded my business when I needed to mind my business. And, the girls that wanted to be friends with me and talk to me and tell me their stories, I, would sit and listen and get to know people. And the people who didn't want anything to do with me had nothing to do with me. And, I didn't get in a fight. I didn't have anybody, try to hurt me or be nasty to me. You learn that, people really can become very inventive in prison. And, there were girls that were able to cook, like rice in a sink with a towel and steam. And
I'm sure you learned some lifelong lessons, how to survive if you find yourself deserted somewhere or whatnot, It's
like life hack 101 in there.
Exactly. You're from what, the Palm Beach area? That's where did you know Jeffrey Epstein?
I did not know Jeffrey Epstein.
Speaking of another asshole to throw in the pile,
my criminal defense lawyer was actually on Epstein's team, and one of the reasons why I hired him was because I thought having somebody on the other side of the aisle, who had been involved in such a high-profile case would be a good choice. But that was before Epstein killed himself. And shout out to Guy Frunson. He did a good job representing me. I mean, no disrespect by that, but it's a complicated situation down here. Like I said, we do get, some reputations because of some of the assholes that are in our backyard. And certainly Jeffrey Epstein was an asshole.
Definitely was. Yeah. Let me ask you a couple questions here. These are just generic questions that I always like to ask different things to my guests. Is there a recurring theme that's in your life?
A reoccurring theme that's in my life, besides having a lot of children and
how many kids do you have? How many kids and ex-husbands?
I have 3 ex-husbands. Two ex-husbands. I'm sorry. I'm on my 3rd marriage, so 3rd time's a charm.
Gotcha.
I have 4 kids, and then I have 2 stepkids. So we have sort of a modern day Brady Bunch, and I'm a grandma.
Nice.
So. Yeah.
All right, so recurring theme might be kids and husbands, but maybe this is it. 3rd time's a charm. There you go. 3rd time's a charm. Do you collect anything?
I'm not like a hoarder though. I'm very minimalistic. I don't like, when you say collect things, again, that would probably be husbands and children.
Yeah.
That would be the things that I collect.
That sounds creepy when you put it that way, but
it does. No, I mean, I love vintage jewelry. So that's kind of like one of my little sideline passions.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you have, so besides being convicted for this misdemeanor, do you have any other asshole stories that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, I have so many asshole stories, but again, we don't want to just talk about ex-husbands.
There you go. Well, pick one maybe that's, not related to, the topics that we were just talking about.
Let's see. I got to think about this a little bit. Well, there's another really good story about me that I'm sure your listeners could dig up. My current husband's ex-wife once said that I threatened her with a Louboutin stiletto. And that was in the papers.
What is that? Louboutin Stiletto?
It's a shoe.
That's a shoe. Okay. Like
it's
a high
it's a
heel?
red bottom shoe. Like a high heel, like a stiletto heel.
You can actually kill someone with one of those things, I would imagine.
Well, she was in a vehicle at the time, and she tried to hit me with the car. So it was a fight or flight response. I took my shoe off. I get them from New Jersey, so in the moment I took my shoe off.
I think all good potential weapons come from New Jersey at the end of the day.
Yeah. So basically she said that I threatened her with the shoe. So that was kind of like an asshole moment. I'll give her that. That was kind of an asshole moment on my part. I should have lost my cool.
Yeah. So you threw the shoe at her from a moving car? Or no?
I held it.
You held it up.
In her car. I just held it up. She was in a car. I just held it up.
Right,
I didn't even really it was kind of like
you didn't attack her.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck you. Like, you're gonna try to hit me with the car, you fucking
fuck
bitch.
You.
Like,
here's my shoe. Kind of
exactly. Like, fuck you. Here's my shoe. But she was in a vehicle with her windows rolled down, and then took pictures of me in my leather dress when I had removed the shoe. And those pictures ended up in the paper. So. I can be a little Jersey. I can lose my cool from time to time.
That's the thing about people from Jersey. Like we do have a tendency to snap, even if we don't realize. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm very low key and chill, but then at one moment I'll just snap at someone for something stupid.
Yeah. And well, yeah, and that's I can get lost in the moment, and I can snap a little bit. Right. I had an incident too. I'm sure this would be very hard for you to believe that I have some crazy stalkers. But
do you have a lot of stalkers online, like Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely bring out like a passion in the haters. Mm-hmm. I'm the girl you love to hate, I guess.
Right. Now, has anyone ever taken their stalking off of line and into your personal space?
Yeah. It's a little scary when that happens. There's definitely a line cross, but I had an incident where somebody who was stalking me showed up at an event, and I decided to question her about why she was stalking me and what her motivation was. And at the end, it ended up with me telling her to kiss my ass, which, again, I kind of lost my cool there a little bit, but it was warranted. I mean, it's scary when the online stalking then becomes in-person stalking. It's a whole other level.
Right. I would say that could be a whole other level. We have someone that wants to, someone calling in that wants to ask you a question. Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
Okay, hold on. This is all right.
Hey, what's up? How's it going? I just wanted to say, how do you say your name? Karyn? Is it Karyn?
Yeah, Karyn. Yeah.
Karyn. I just want to say, you were much better than I thought you were going to be on the show, and I had I read about you, I learned about you, and you're actually really entertaining. You accept accountability for what you did. I think it's just really great. I wanted to call in and say that because I listened to the entire podcast so far. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for calling in.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're even like you don't believe in masks. I believe in masks, this and that, but still, like you're very reasonable, and you expect the worst. I told that to Doug when so. But you were quite the opposite, and I just thought last thing I want to say was do you have like a better asshole story, like something that like maybe wasn't even caught by the media, or something that you look back at and you're just like, wow, I was out of line, or maybe that's the best asshole story usually on this show.
Yeah, there was this girl in high school that I was really mean to. Her name was Nancy, and I feel bad about it all the time. And I just want to say to Nancy Koch, I'm really sorry. I don't even know if she remembers. She's my Facebook friend now. But I remember being really, really mean to her once because there was some disagreement between these girls. And I just remember coming out of the gym in my school, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, and just like really laying into her in a way that was like really mean. Like I called her fat and ugly, and I was just really, really horrible to her, and I still feel bad about it. So there's my public apology for that. So yeah, some stuff like that. I mean, times that I've lost my cool, and acted like an idiot.
Well,
that would be one of those times.
I think
I've been not nice from time to time.
We've all probably said stuff in the past to people that we regret. So if Nancy's listening, there's your apology if she wants to come on the show and talk about it. One last quote. So you're also doing community service, right? Due to your
I did.
Oh, you did it?
I did community service. Yeah, I completed it, and I actually did something really awesome because COVID had hit. And originally when they gave me the community service, they wanted me to work in a nursing home, and obviously that couldn't happen.
Oh,
so
right.
I actually found a really great charity called the Esther 414 Foundation, and they work with people that had escaped the Holocaust. And both of my parents fled from Austria during the Nazi occupation, like really interesting backstory. So I wanted to find a way during COVID that we could connect with these people because they were getting Meals on Wheels from an organization called Morse Life. So what we did is we set up middle school students to become virtual pen pals with these Holocaust survivors. And it ended up being a really successful program. And I'm really proud of it. And I think they're still doing it. There's still a couple of schools and it's now a part of their Holocaust education curriculum. And they've been writing these letters really diligently, these middle school students. And the older people love it. And believe it or not, there's still a lot of Holocaust survivors down here in South Florida that are, in their 90s. Mm-hmm. And, right now during COVID, I think it's really important for us to maintain a connection with these elderly people. And I felt really good about doing that.
That's great. Yeah. Community service. I did community service once for a traffic ticket because I was too cheap to pay it at the time. And I was like, they were like, would you like to do community service? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun and interesting. And they assigned me to the Goodwill. And I had fun with it for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, all right, I need to get the hell out of here. I should have just paid it. I was like, this is.
And I love a Goodwill. So like that would be like dangerous for me because I do.
It was. I ended up like buying a bunch of shit. Like I would put it on the side, and then I found out I got in trouble. Like if you're doing community service, you can't be like taking all the good stuff because like I was there early, and like there were people that would show up, and they called them Goodwill hunting. They would go hunting for the good stuff that came in. And
those eBayers.
Then I got in trouble because I had put like a couple things aside and you weren't supposed to like buy them. I was like, I didn't realize there was so much controversy at the Goodwill. I'm like, all right, now I know not to hide items. But yeah, it is kind of. But community service is interesting. It is redeeming in a way. You learn a lot. Like you were saying, it was a good cause that you found to be able to put your time into. So that's great. One last question for you: what used to scare you as a child in New Jersey?
Oh, in New Jersey.
That's where you grew up, so I'm just throwing that.
Well, I'm going to age myself. The 44 caliber killer. I was so scared of just when I grew up, like in the 70s, the 70s, early 80s. I was just afraid of like fierce city, like New York, the mean streets of New York. And I used to go to the city with my mom a lot, and my mom would always talk about like, we got to watch out, like you don't want to get mugged in the subway. So like I was scared my whole life of either getting pushed onto the tracks in the subway or getting mugged. Mm-hmm. So those were my two biggest fears as a child.
That's a fear of mine now. Probably more so now that I go to cities more. But yeah, that is a good one. That's interesting. Yeah, because it's like you really have no control over that. If some asshole just comes behind you and pushes you, obviously there's going to be other people around you that would hopefully help and pinpoint the person who did it. But yes. And
I saw a guy get pushed on the tracks. It's actually in my book. I saw an old man get pushed onto the train track. Yeah. And the guardian angels came in and saved him when I was a kid. And it was really amazing. The
real guardian angels, not the one that looked after your mother, apparently, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But that was a big part of my perception is like growing up, in New Jersey, like, 70s and 80s, like I thought guardian, like I associate that with, Curtis Lewa and the Guardian Angels and, do-gooders. And that certainly wasn't what I experienced in my mother's case.
Well, I'm glad that you came on the show today, Karyn. I really appreciate your time. Mrs. Florida 2016. She is a activist, a commentator. She does it all. She spent some time in prison for a crime that she committed. She admitted to. She was guilty. She is sorry. She finds herself in good company with President Trump and Roger Stone. They all have lawsuits in common. That's something else you guys have in common.
A lot of people have lawsuits.
Exactly, yeah. But the way we end this show is, you really put yourself out there today. And the way we end it is just you saying your name and saying that you're an a-hole.
I'm Karyn Turk, and I'm an asshole.
There you go, everyone. Karyn, and she is an asshole. Well, Karyn, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Is there anything else? She has a book coming out. When is this coming out?
My book's probably going to be out in the fall. I'm just finishing up my manuscript now, so I'm really super excited about it. But I also have a new podcast and radio show on iHeart called Behind the Headlines. So I hope maybe some of your viewers and listeners will tune in.
Absolutely. You can follow her at Karyn Turk on Twitter and I guess all the social media apps. Karyn, hey, thanks so much. Thank you for coming on. You've redeemed yourself today, so go in peace.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it, folks. Karyn Turk, former Mrs. Florida 2016. Like her or don't, she owned up to her mistakes on the Asshole podcast, so she has been redeemed. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast fix. Follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/asshole show. Don't forget to follow the YouTube page where it's at Doug Bass Comedy, where you can check out all the videos from this podcast. And remember, folks, don't be an asshole. But if you are, talk about it and laugh about it. My name's Doug Bass. We'll see you next time. Bye.